The night sky over Oakfield County looked like it was tearing itself apart. Lightning split through the dark, rain crashing so hard it felt alive. Most folks had already taken shelter hours ago, but not Cora Belle Hines. At 76, Cora Belle had seen too many storms to be afraid of one more. Her hands were still steady, her back still strong from decades of working the cotton mill before it shut down. These days, she mostly stayed home, knitting by her radio and talking to her late husband as if he still sat across from her. But that night, something wouldn't let her rest. The wind kept howling through her old windows, and beneath it, something else. A sound that didn't belong. A faint, hollow clang followed by what she thought might have been a cry. She turned off the radio. The sound came again. "Now what on earth," she muttered, grabbing her flashlight and raincoat. She stepped out into the storm, the wind tugging at her shawl. Her house stood on the edge of a long, twisting back road that led toward the woods, a place most folks avoided at night. But Cora Belle had never been one to scare easy. As she trudged down the muddy path, the beam of her flashlight caught something metallic in the ditch. She squinted, stepped closer, and her breath hitched. 2 motorcycles, wrecked, wheels bent, gas tanks leaking. And beside them, 2 men lay sprawled in the rain, motionless. She gasped, hurrying closer. Both wore torn leather vests marked with flaming skulls and the words "Hell's Angels." "Oh, Lord have mercy," she whispered. One man stirred, coughing hard, blood mixing with rain on his face. The other didn't move at all. Cora Belle didn't think twice. She had no idea who these men were, but she knew pain when she saw it. "Don't you go dying on me," she said, kneeling beside the one who moved. He blinked through the rain, dazed. "Help him," he rasped, voice raw. "Please." Her heart broke at that word. "Please. I'm gonna get you both out. Talk here," she said firmly. "Don't you worry." It took every ounce of her strength to pull them into her old wagon, the same one she used for hauling firewood. The wheels screamed through the mud as she dragged them back to her house. Her breath came in gasps, her body aching, but she didn't stop until they were both inside, lying near the warmth of her fireplace. Cora Belle cleaned their wounds with the care of someone who'd spent a lifetime tending others. The one who'd spoken, broad shoulders, sharp jaw, was named Nash. The younger, unconscious one, she later learned, was River. When Nash finally woke, his first words weren't what she expected. "Why'd you bring us here?" She raised an eyebrow. "Because leaving you in the ditch seemed a poor way to let a man die." He stared at her, disbelief flickering in his eyes. "You don't know who we are." "I know you're breathing. That's enough." He looked around the room, eyes falling on the faded photos of her husband and son hanging by the mantel. "You got family?" he asked. "Had," she said softly. "My boy passed 10 years ago. My husband before that." Something changed in his face. He didn't say another word for a while, just watched the flames dance in silence. By morning, River was awake but weak. His leg was badly bruised, ribs cracked. Nash tried to get up to help him, but Cora Belle stopped him with a glare sharp enough to freeze him mid-motion. "You sit down before you drop dead again," she said. He grumbled but obeyed. The 2 men stayed through the day, eating her soup in silence. Nash was wary, River quiet and polite. Neither seemed used to kindness. Cora Belle didn't ask what brought them to that road. She figured if they wanted to talk, they would. But as night fell, she noticed the way Nash kept glancing toward the window, like a hunted man. It wasn't long before she found out why. The next evening, a black truck rolled slow through the fog outside her house. The headlights swept across her porch before the engine shut off. Cora Belle felt her stomach tighten. "Friends of yours?" she asked. Nash froze. "No," he said quietly. "Enemies." Before she could respond, 3 men stepped out of the truck, each wearing the same patch as Nash, but theirs gleamed fresh, newer. One of them carried a chain. "They found us," River whispered. "It's the breakers." They turned on the club. Cora Belle's heart hammered. She wasn't sure what kind of trouble she dragged into her home, but she knew one thing: she wasn't about to let blood be spilled on her porch. "Stay down," she said. "Both of you." Before they could stop her, the 76-year-old woman grabbed her walking stick and stepped out onto the porch. Rain drizzled down, thunder rolling in the distance. The men stopped when they saw her. "Evenin', ma'am," the one with the chain said, smirking. "We're lookin' for a couple of fellas. You seen any bikes come through here?" Cora Belle's face stayed calm, voice steady as steel. "Ain't seen a thing but rain and sinners," she said. The man laughed. "You sure about that?" She stepped closer, eyes unflinching. "I been sure about everything since the day my husband died. Now, you best be movin' along before I remember how to swing this stick." The men exchanged looks, half amusement, half unease. Something about her presence made them hesitate. Finally, they turned and got back into the truck, tires spitting gravel as they sped off into the dark. Inside, Nash stared at her in disbelief. "You stood up to them?" She shrugged, setting the stick by the door. "Ain't my first time fastened, devils. They just dress different now." River smiled weakly. "You could have gotten hurt." Cora Belle looked at him with quiet kindness. "Some things are worth standing for. You two need to figure out what those things are for you." And as thunder rumbled again over the hills, both men sat in silence, knowing their lives had just crossed paths with someone far stronger than either of them had ever met. Cora Belle didn't sleep that night. She sat in her rocking chair by the fire, watching the flames rise and fall, thinking about the men sleeping in her guest room. Nash had drifted off reluctantly, but River's breathing was still ragged. Every time the wind rattled the windows, she flinched, not out of fear, but instinct. Something in her gut told her this wasn't over. At dawn, she made coffee and oatmeal. When Nash came into the kitchen, shirtless and bruised, she saw something in him she hadn't noticed before, a quiet brokenness beneath all the scars. He looked like a man who'd been fighting his whole life and finally forgot what he was fighting for. "You didn't have to save us," he said again. His voice was rough but softer this time. Cora Belle didn't look up from stirring her pot. "Didn't do it for thanks. Did it because I could." He watched her for a long moment, then said quietly, "That woman you remind me of, my mother. She used to talk like that. Haven't thought about her in years." "Then maybe it's time you start again," she said. When River woke, he was pale but alert. His ribs still hurt, but he tried to stand anyway. Cora Belle gently pushed him back into the chair. "You're not going anywhere till that body of yours listens to reason." He smiled weakly. "You talk like my grandma." "Then your grandma raised you right," she said. Over the next few hours, the house felt almost peaceful. Nash helped chop some wood, insisting he owed her something for keeping them safe. River told her stories about growing up near the Gulf, how he used to play blues guitar before he joined the club. The way he said it, like that life was another lifetime ago, broke something small in her heart. But peace never lasted long in a world like theirs. Around noon, Cora Belle's neighbor, Mrs. Harper, knocked on the door, her face pale and worried. "Cora, honey, you best be careful," she whispered. "Sheriff says some gang men came through town again last night, threatening folks at the gas station. Said they're looking for 2 traders who stole from them." Cora Belle's stomach sank. She thanked her and shut the door quietly. When she turned around, Nash already knew. "They're not gonna stop," he said. "Those men last night, they work for a guy named Briggs. He runs a rival chapter. They want us dead because River tried to leave, and I helped him." Cora Belle took a long breath. "So that's what this is about, leaving?" Nash nodded. The club don't take kindly to anyone who walks away. They say we stole money, but all we took was our freedom. She looked between them, her face unreadable. You ever think maybe this is your chance to start clean? He gave a humorless laugh. Clean don't exist for men like us, ma'am. But Cora Belle didn't agree. That's where you're wrong. You're breathing. You can walk. You can change. The rest is choice. That night, a strange calm fell over the house, like the quiet before another storm. Cora Belle prayed at her kitchen table, whispering the same words her mother once prayed for her, Lord, guide the lost ones back to the light. But miles down the road, the rumble of engines was already echoing again. Briggs and his men had found the tire tracks leading to her property. By the time the first headlights pierced through the trees, Nash was already at the window, his jaw clenched. They're here. River tried to stand, but Cora Belle stopped him. You ain't fightin', she said firmly. They'll kill her, River said. Boy, I've lived longer than their tempers, she replied, eyes blazing with quiet strength. If they're comin' for trouble, they'll get truth first. Before either man could stop her, Cora Belle opened the front door and stepped onto the porch again. Rain started to fall lightly, the smell of wet earth thick in the air. The bike stopped at the end of her driveway, their headlights cutting through the darkness. 6 men climbed off, tattoos and chains glinting in the light. The leader, Briggs, was tall, heavy-built, his beard soaked with rain. Evenin', lady, he called out. We're lookin' for 2 rats who been hidin' from us. You seen anyone come by? Cora Belle didn't flinch. Ain't seen no rats, just 2 men who almost died in that storm. Briggs smirked. Then you have seen them. He took a step closer. We just want what's ours. You want your men, she said. But what's yours is their past. And that's already dead. Briggs laughed, but there was something uneasy in his eyes. He wasn't used to people standing up to him, least of all an old woman in a housecoat. Ma'am, he said, this ain't your business. Move aside. Cora Belle lifted her chin. When 2 broken boys bleed on my floor, it becomes my business. For a tense moment, no one spoke. The rain thickened, thunder rumbling in the distance. Then, Nash stepped out onto the porch, bruised but defiant. It's me you want, Briggs. Leave her out of it. Briggs grinned. Now there's the man I came for. River followed, leaning on his cane, breathing hard. If you're talking one of us, you're talking both. Briggs spat in the dirt. Fine by me. He motioned to his men. But before they could move, Cora Belle's voice cut through the air. You take 1 step toward this house, and you'll wish you hadn't. Her hand was steady, holding an old shotgun, Henry's shotgun, leveled straight at Briggs. The bikers froze. Now, she said slowly, you can drag this evil back where it came from, or you can meet your maker right here in my front yard. Your choice. The men looked at each other. The storm growled louder. Finally, Briggs sneered. This ain't over, old lady. He turned, motioning for his crew to leave. Engines roared back to life, fading into the night. When they were gone, Cora Belle lowered the gun and exhaled. Nash stepped forward, shaken. You could have been killed. She smiled faintly. Ain't the first time death came knockin' and left empty-handed. River's eyes filled with tears. Why'd you do it for us? She looked at them both, her voice steady. Because someone once stood for me when I didn't deserve it. Figured it was my turn. The next morning, word spread through Silver Ridge about what happened. Folks gathered outside the general store, whispering about how Cora Belle Hines stared down a gang and sent them packing without a single shot fired. But to her, it wasn't about pride or courage. It was about something simpler, mercy. A week later, Nash and River left town quietly. They promised to start new, somewhere far away, where no one knew their names. Cora Belle watched them go from her porch, the morning sun warming her face. She smiled, whispering, "Go make it right, boys." And for the first time in years, the old woman felt peace, a peace that came not from being alone, but from knowing she'd helped someone else find a way back to the light.